Hey everyone, Snozberries here, back with another video, but this one's going to be a little bit different. This one's going to be on the zombie storyline. There's a lot to cover, so I'm not going to, dilly-dally with anything in what I'm saying, so I'm just going to cut straight to it. In the year 1939, the world was threatened by a second world war after Germany's chancellor and supreme dictator Adolf Hitler rose to power. Dr. Ludwig Maxis formed Group 935 as an international German-led research team, and he emerged as its head scientist. Maxis sought to use a mysterious new element, which had been named Element 115, or Divinium, to improve the human condition by developing advanced technologies, and enlisted Dr. Edward Richtofen as a senior assistant rather than equal partner. Much to his chagrin, however, the group's goal immediately detoured due to lack of funding, and Maxis regretfully turned to making a contract with the Nazi Wunderwaffe program to use 115 as a power source for deadly new weaponry to help the Axis powers win the war. Maxis hoped after the war the generous funds and Germany's ultimate victory would put Group 935 in a much better position to help the world. Using a large supply of element 115 in meteors, Maxis began a series of testing experimenting with 115 began used to power a device capable of teleportation, called MTTs, or at the De Reest facility in Lower Silesia. While the major of the tests failed, Richtofen and another 935 scientist, Dr. Schuster, conducted a successful test by their own by teleporting a walnut using the small amount of element 115. Though Edward assumed this was a sign of progress, Maxis criticized the scientists for failing to work on their assigned experiments, which led Richtofen into thinking that Maxis planned to betray the scientists and claim their work as his own. Despite Maxis's displeasure, Richtofen and Schuster continued their research with the MTD device. After a month of testing, Richtofen agreed to be teleported himself, but rather than appearing at the test site's mainframe, he arrived with a catacomb on the moon, where a large triangular device known as the MPD was located. After touching the device, Richtofen began hearing a series of voices in his head, unknowingly gaining schizophrenia from the pyramid before being teleported away from the strange device, arriving in an exotic shrine in the Himalayan jungles known as Shangri-La. Richtofen remained there for 3 weeks and learned of mysterious energy forces known as the Vril. Richtofen returned to the De Reest facility with full knowledge of the MPD and the Vril, and with Schuster and other Group 935 scientists, spent 2 years building a top-secret moon base, also known as Griffin Station, to study the device, which now knew to be dimensional gateway to the ether. Placing Schuster and his superior Dr. Groff in charge of the facility, Richtofen continued to charade as Maxis' senior assistant, whom he'd planned to kill eventually and enter the aether using the MPD to take control of its energy. As Groff and Schuster toiled with the device, Maxis and Richtofen began a project to create wonder weapons for the Nazi Party. Richtofen used the element to create the Wunderwaffe DG-2, a weapon so deadly even Maxis himself felt uneasy about its mass production. Nonetheless, he promised Richtofen it would be produced, but his growing attraction with the Secretary Sophia prevented him from doing so. While other weapons were produced from several Group 935 facilities, such as the Quantum Entanglement Device or the QED, made by Richtofen and the second-generation ray gun created by Dr. Porter, Maxis focused his attention on the matter transference devices, hoping to manufacture them to the Wehrmacht, granting German forces easy travel in the war. The initial tests failed, with the subjects either being killed or exposed to element 115, resulting in their deceased cells being reanimated and becoming unresponsive zombies. However, the first successful test would be conducted after a dog had been sent in there through the device and failed to return to the mainframe. While Maxis did not believe the MTD experiments to be failures, the Reichstag saw the creation of the zombies as another advantage in war, forcing Maxis to control the zombies. During the unsuccessful attempts to control the zombies, Richtofen traveled to a Siberian Group 935 outpost to experiment with 115 on living test subjects, hoping to procure a serum capable of rendering the human mind responsive to commands from another. Using POWs, or prisoners of war, from the war, Richtofen used Red Army Sergeant Nikolai Belisky, Imperial Army Captain Takio Masaki, and an unknown Mexican as subjects in these tests. Through the process, their memories were erased and the Mexicans were killed, forcing Richtofen to request a replacement test subject. After an American OSS spy, Peter McCain, who was inserted into Group 935 to report all ongoing experiments to his handlers at the Nevada base, was compromised at the 935 facility at the Waterloo Sanatorium in Pankow, Berlin, or Verrucht. A Marine recon team was sent to evacuate him. The team, led by Tank Dempsey, found the site infested with the undead, and their extraction plan quickly failed. With Dempsey being the only survivor and Richtofen's newest test subject, Peter was parachuted into the Rising Sun facility, also known as Shinonuma, where he was killed upon his landing. Another recon team was sent to an airfield in an attempt to rescue the site from the zombies that were populated there, the airfield being Nocturne. Richtofen became suspicious of other OSS operatives in the organization, with Dr. Harvey Yenna being one of his subjects. Yenna also presents at the Siberian site developing the scavenger sniper rifle from Call of the Dead. Nonetheless, Richtofen continued his work with 115, which yielded interesting results with each test subject. Dempsey acquired severe anger management issues. Belinsky became functionless without some form of alcohol substance, and Masaki's mind was broken with him only speaking Japanese proverbs. As this result continued, Dr. Groff and Dr. Schuster completed the wave gun and turned their attention to the MPD. When both scientists returned to Darice, World War II was not at an end, resulting in an Allied victory and the collapse of the Third Reich. With 935 no longer funded and test site overrun, the future looked grim. Though Maxis pressed on to improve human condition, conducting a sixth test with the MTD, hoping to mass produce it for public use. Maxis and Richtofen used Fluffy as a test subject, and to their astonishment, successfully teleported her from teleporter ZA and spawned an orb of lightning in its place. As this occurred, Samantha arrived at the lab, questioning her father on Fluffy's disappearance. The dog quickly returned through the lightning, with Element 115 reanimating her deceased cells and turning her into a being known as a hellhound. As Maxis and his daughter attempted to approach the monster, Richtofen proceeded with his plan by locking them in a teleporter, believing the dog had killed them. Unbeknownst to Richtofen, Samantha and Maxis both entered the MDT and were teleported to separate locations. Samantha arrived at Griffin Station where the MPD awaited open and ready for a human conduit. Terrified from the lack of air, Samantha accidentally ran into the device itself, entering the ether and gaining complete control of its energy, which is how she came in control of the zombies. Dr. Groff immediately contacted Richtofen and warned him of Samantha and Maxis's having survived, and received commands to locate Maxis and bring him to the station to finish him off. Using the MPD's ability to teleport matter, Schuster and Groff teleported Maxis to the base, where they allowed him to speak with Samantha. After promising he loved her, Maxis asked his daughter to use the ether's power to destroy Group 935 and anyone daring to continue their dangerous work, which she promised to fulfill. Upon being shot, Maxis' soul became conjoined with the computer systems at Griffin Station, while Samantha commanded the zombie hordes located at numerous 935 outposts to slaughter anyone involved with the organization. Richtofen hastily escaped Darice, now overrun with zombies, with his 3 test subjects remembering their skills in combat from the previous interactions with them. Realizing that Samantha was in control of the ether, he devised an alternate plan to get ultimate power. Use a Vril-generating device and sufficient supply of 115 to bend life force itself, allowing him to switch his soul with Samantha's and enter the ether in its all-powerful being. After arriving at the Rising Sun facility, or Shinonuma, to locate a supply of the element, Richtofen discovered the site to be populated by zombies, forcing him and his allies to fend off the hordes. Due to a possibility of being overwhelmed, the 4 abandoned the site and returned to Darice, where Richtofen hoped to use the MDD prototype to arrive at Griffin Station in some fashion, as Samantha to possibly enter the ether in another fashion. After the MDT was shot with a Wunderwaffe DG-2 charge, it overloaded and ripped through space and time, sending the group into the future of an abandoned theater in Germany, also known as Kiener Dotonen. After disappearing from Darice, a Russian and American standoff took place. As both forces wanted to salvage the work, Group 935 for the benefit of their own countries, followed by a massacre of the zombie population there. Sometime prior to the character's arrival at the Soviet Cosmodrome, a Russian scientist, Yuri Savalisky, was transferred from Project Mercury to work on sending monkeys into space, which is why you see monkeys in Ascension, much to his dismay. His transfer was caused by his superior Gersh, who he holds a grudge against after the reliving of his duty from Project Mercury. As Gersh is working on Project Mercury, his staff is working on Project Thunder, which was to create the Thunder Gun. Yuri notices a teddy bear and Matryoshka dolls and wonders how a child could be let into the station. The child, Samantha, then slowly drives Yuri insane. Yuri, in his state of mind, finishes the Gersh device and has Gersh activated, letting in the zombies and trapping Gersh. Yuri presumably dies. After the events of Kiener Dotonen, the main characters somehow reach the abandoned Soviet Cosmodrome. The characters then hear Gersh, who tells them that the mechanism must be repaired. He is referring to the Casimir mechanism, which must be repaired by completing different tasks. After all the tasks are completed and the mechanism is repaired, Gersh is freed, leaving Samantha free to be ridden of in the ether. At the same time, John F. Kennedy, Robert McNamara, Fidel Castro and Richard Nixon are negotiating when zombies break into the Pentagon. There are only four. They are the only four still alive in the building and discover its secret lab under the Pentagon with many of the technologies of what Group E5 was attempting to develop. As they continue fighting, Dempsey and Takio slowly begin to regain their memory. Takio is the first to remember and remarks to himself that someday when Group is finished fighting zombies, Richtofen will get what he deserves. Dempsey, on the other hand, is slowly making progress as he remembers that he'd seen Richtofen being captured before. Takio notes his shifting memories and believes Dempsey is finally remembering what Richtofen did to him. In modern-day 2011, George A. Romero stumbled upon Group 935's research while making a World War II film. He and the cast took a ship out to the new abandoned lab in Siberia. After he and the movie's crew were zombified by the remains of the ship's crew, only 4 actors of the crew, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Robert Englund, Diane Trejo, and Michael Rooker, remained alive. After the Casimir mechanism was completed in Ascension, it overloaded the teleporter and sent the original characters to a Group 935 facility in Siberia, where they were trapped behind a locked door. Richtofen then asked the celebrities to help him obtain the goldenrod, which they did. Richtofen thanks the group by giving them the Wunderwaffe DG2 to help them fight the zombies. It is unknown what became of the celebrities after helping the group escape in Shangri-La, though sometimes later Romero was interviewed when he recounted his story of how he found the research and how he came to making the film. Shangri-La, a temple that once was a mining facility for 115, however, does not live up to its name. As its inhabitants have all been zombified before the group's arrival, Richtofen now states that this was the last step to controlling the world before he is teleported there. Prior to the group's arrival in Shangri-La, 2 explorers, Brock and Gary, went on an expedition to prove their theories on Agartha. Brock later figures out that the temple wasn't built by an ancient civilization, but by people in modern era interpreting it. After investigating the temple, the pair accidentally activates the temple's time travel and died in the result of the zombie attack. The group travels back in time and helps the pair survive. When the group finally creates the focusing stone and places it on the altar with Richtofen's name on it, the 2 explorers are then sent back to the moment they discover the temple, indicating that they're stuck in a never-ending loop. Which is the entirety of the Shangri-La Easter egg. Meanwhile, a group of radiation scientists investigate the rooms of former nuclear test sites in Nevada when the undead begin to attack. Only one person, Marlton Johnson, survives. Richtofen then has the group complete the MPD. When the device is completed, it opens up to reveal Samantha Maxis, suspended in air. As it turns out, the device acts like a prison and keeps her cryogenically frozen so she can be used to control the zombies. Richtofen goes to a terminal to power up the goldenrod and focusing stone, which he fuses together. However, he encounters Dr. Maxis inside the terminal, who tries to stop him. Richtofen switches souls with Samantha to gain control of the zombies. Richtofen finally thinks everything has gone his way until Takio, Dempsey, and Nikolai decide to stop him. Dr. Maxis, sensing Richtofen's betrayal, prepared a backup plan in case Richtofen got this far. The group then launches 3 missiles located on the moon, one which impacts the nuclear testing site, destroying the Earth's ozone layer in the hopes that it will sever the link between the Aether and Earth, thereby greatly lessening the damage Richtofen could cause. Unfortunately, the calculations were made in haste, resulting in a catastrophic destruction. The missile launch leaves the Earth a post-apocalyptic crumbling wasteland littered with undead hordes as civilizations began to collapse. As survivors began to band together to form small human communities and shelters to protect themselves from the new global undead threat, Maxis realizes the failure of his original plan due to hasty calculations and begins contacting survivors to help him with his Plan B. To activate global polarization devices and open a gateway to the ether, where he would overpower Richtofen and use its energy to heal the Earth. To complete his plans, Maxis began using electronical devices on Earth to communicate with survivors. Unbeknownst to his followers, Maxis planned to commandeer the Aether's energy for his own use to the gateway to Agartha, which would ultimately destroy the Earth and its people. Richtofen, unsatisfied with his limited power to the undead, planned to activate these polarization devices as well, which would grant him further manipulation of both zombies and humans and mend the rift, a direct gateway to Agartha that would eternally damn the soul of Samantha Maxis. Limited to communicate with those only capable of hearing the voices of the Aether, Richtofen began his own plight and quest for unlimited power. Meanwhile, Martin Johnson emerges as the sole survivor of the events in the nuclear test site and meets Abigail Misty and in an abandoned town where they find 2 more survivors, Russman and Samuel J. Stuhlinger, who have commandeered a robotic bus they have used for transport. There, the 4 survivors are contacted by Maxis, who reveal the town is in the location of a polarization device required for his plans. At the same time, Richtofen contacts Samuel, who has previously eaten zombie flesh, resulting in him being able to hear Richtofen, instructing him to foil Maxis's plans by activating the tower in his favor, beginning to race for power between the Germans. The group is teleported by Richtofen to a skyscraper in the crumbled city of Shanghai, China. Maxis regains contact, hoping to gain control of the second tower located there, while Richtofen blackmailed Samuel into helping him acquire the device's power as well, threatening to reveal to his allies his secrets. Every time the group fails to carry out the objective and is killed by the zombie horde, Richtofen uses power to bring them back, with no memories of having been killed before. Once the second polarization device had been activated by either of the Germans, the group manages to escape the building they were trapped in. Eventually, the group makes it out of the crumbling city of Shanghai and begins a journey through the remains of Europe and Africa to reach the rift, hoping to find answers about the unseen forces commanding them. In southern Angola, the group finds a western town buried underground near the rift. Maxis once again contacts his allies, imploring them to activate the last tower in his favor. Meanwhile, Samuel was tasked for the same objective by Richtofen, as it was also the last tower he needed to mend the rift and gain his unlimited power. If the player decides to follow the Maxis Easter egg in all three maps and polarize the tower in his favor, a portal to the ether will open and allow Maxis to become the controller of zombies and the dimension's energies. He will then proceed with his plans to open Agartha, revealing himself to be just as evil as Richtofen, and announcing that he is in the process he will destroy Earth and all of its surviving inhabitants, and reunite with himself with his daughter Samantha after returning Richtofen to the physical world spawned as a blue-eyed zombie. If the player decides to follow all of Richtofen's Easter eggs in all three maps and polarize the towers in his favor, the rift will be mended, eternally damning Samantha to Agartha and allowing Richtofen to retrieve full manipulation of the ether's energies with Earth as his personal playground and Maxis to seize his very existence. Richtofen is now able to leave the aether at will and uses his body of Samuel Stillinger as his physical host. Unbeknownst to both Germans, Samantha had actually traveled to an alternative timeline in 1918. In this timeline, in the midst of World War I, the German research organization known as Group 935 are tasked with creating powerful new weaponry to ensure victory of the Central Powers. During September of 1917, Dr. Ludwig Maxis and his partners Dr. Edward Richtofen lead an archaeological excavation into the trenches of northern France after Dr. Maxis promises Group 935's leaders that this is the location of an unknown and enigmatic new element. The excavation not only discovers this new element, but also uncovers an ancient and mysterious ruin beneath the battlefield. Dr. Maxis classifies the new element as number 115 on the periodic table of elements. The group plans to use element 115 as a power source for the new weaponry in the Wonder Weapon program. At the excavation site, Group 935 installs a series of conversion generators that utilize element 115 to create localized energy fields. To their surprise, the energy fields act like portals and begin to materialize advanced machinery of indeterminate origin, leading to Maxis to summarize that the conversion of element 115 is somehow capable of creating a crease or tear in space and time. As the excavation continues, Group 935s discover more wonders, such as the ancient box capable of delivering weapons from various time periods, further confirming Maxis' suspicion that element 115 has time-altering properties. Dr. Richtofen takes part in his creation of at least 4 giant mechanical humanoids whose creation is only possible due to the use of element 115 as a power source. Group 935 plans to deliver these to the German army for use in battle. It is at this time Richtofen notices that Maxis starts to show signs of paranoia and mental psychosis. The symptoms worsen as Maxis begins to hear the voice of Samantha, who claims to not only be his daughter, but also that she is trapped in the realm known as Agartha and needs help to escape. Due to Samantha's constant interference with their work, Richtofen fears for his friend Maxis' safety and grows to despise Samantha. Meanwhile, the excavation site in northern France unearths a sealed main chamber within the ancient ruins. All attempts to open this chamber are unsuccessful until purely by chance. One of the workers sets up a gramophone for entertainment. When the gramophone begins to play music, the chamber seal opens, revealing cryptic writing on the walls. Maxis studies the writings and learns of the ancient race and their ability to create powerful devices such as the amplification rod and elemental stones. According to the writing, the amplification rod is capable of harnessing energy from the elemental stones. The excavation group has found neither the rod nor the stones, so Maxis instructs Richtofen to create 4 replica rods or elemental staffs while continuing to search for the original devices. When presenting the idea, Richtofen began to question Maxis's actions, believing that the implication wrought to be a myth. Convinced of his insanity, he planned to report his mental instability to Group 935's leaders, while Samantha began to communicate more frequently with Maxis, now attempting to convince him of her being his future daughter. One night, as a team of soldiers were installing more generators, they reported seeing strange and ancient figures emerging from the mound and finding many of the men dead or missing by morning. As more figures emerged, now revealed to be corpses reanimated by Element 115's powers, the test site slowly became infected by the creatures, with Maxis himself slowly turning. The reports of the creatures provoked the United States to send Tank Dempsey to the test site to investigate the group's work, and acquire Dr. Coffins as HVT. Meanwhile, Civil War-torn Russia did the same, believing the Germans had been gearing up to unleash a dangerous new weapon and sent Nikolai Belinsky to undertake the mission. The Emperor wishing to seize the German weaponry for Japan sends Takeo Masaki. As the three soldiers made their way to this test site, Richtofen attempted to preserve Maxis's mind and prevent it from succumbing to the disease and removed his brain. Eventually, the four heroes meet and agree to put aside their country's allegiances to band together and survive the zombie attack in Group 935's mechanical robots. While being contacted by Samantha. So basically, all that's happening now is they meet up together, like in the intro cutscene to Origins, where he's cutting open his head, and then all the three characters jump through the window and confront Richtofen. Like back what I said, the Origins cutscene from Black Ops 2. Or was being contacted by Samantha in the midst of battle, begging to be released from Agartha. While Tank, Nikolai, and Takeo agreed to help, Richtofen focused on creating a makeshift quad rotor drone using Maxis's brain, allowing him to live temporarily until a human body could be provided. The four are able to open a portal to Agartha beneath the ruins, allowing Maxis to meet his future daughter and Samantha to be freed from controlling the zombies. The zombie outbreak was contained. Now that Maxis has finally reached closure with his daughter, Samantha Maxis dreams up a sequence of herself and Eddie, under the care of Samantha's father, Dr. Ludwig Maxis, casually playing a game of zombies, as it's fictionalizing all the past events that occurred, making it seem like it was all just one big game. This was the way of Samantha coping of everything that had happened. In this sequence, Samantha is narrating the end of the origin story, referencing the end of all of the world's problems, making it seem like the zombie storyline was nothing but more than a fictionalized story, a story created to scare children. Edward argues that the zombie's eyes should be blue and says that Samantha doesn't even know how to play right. All of a sudden, sirens are heard in the background. Dr. Maxis tells them to lock the windows and go into the basement. Samantha tells Eddie that he can make the rules next time. Eddie hesitantly says, "I wish the heroes in our story were real, Sam." Then Sam replies, "Don't worry, my father has a plan," referencing to Maxis' creation of Group 935. Since Group 935 was supposed to be the end of the war and fix the world's problems by enhancing the human condition, Samantha and Eddie leave the bedroom, turning out the lights and ending the dream sequence. Later, the four heroes are free from the battlefields of France and teleported to an alternate timeline before the events of the main story. Only moments after Richtofen trapped Maxis and Samantha inside the teleporter with Fluffy, Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takeo confront World War II Richtofen, telling him that there is a chain of events that must be carried out, and prompt him to awaken the original version of themselves. As the zombie horde approach from the outside, World War II Richtofen ignores the three's warning and turns on the teleporter, only find younger Richtofen from the alternate timeline inside it. The young Richtofen, who had just acquired the summoning key from Morgue City, then shoots the older World War II Richtofen in the head, killing him instantly and supposedly erasing all future events. While the group expresses disappointment in Richtofen for tampering with history, he defends his actions, believing that what he does will be for a better tomorrow. The four characters band together within the Doris facility in order to survive the undead horde, to progress through their mission to change the events to secure a better future by releasing the beacon, enabling Maxis to know where and when they are. So basically, when he got the summoning key from Morgue City, he's been teleporting from everywhere, from one dimension to another, to another over and over again until he popped in Morgue City, which is when you finish the Easter egg and the keepers are just about to hand over the summoning key to you. He grabs it and says he can't explain, and then leaves through the portal. That is when he gets teleported to the teleporter into the giant, and then giant starts. Which is why you can also hear him say when he walks to Nikolai that he has a lot of artifacts and the work will be done soon, or something along those lines. Well, he has the summoning key, so people's beliefs in future DLC is that it's just going to be, they're going to go from dimension to dimension just picking up stuff and just picking up artifacts, powerful artifacts that can help them contain the zombies and ultimately to an end stop the entire zombies and possibly bring an end to the storyline in Black Ops 3. Not to say that they won't, that there isn't a possibility that they could just make another storyline if they just made like a World War II or Black Ops 4. They could make an entire new story there, but people think that the main characters and everything is going to die in Black Ops 3. We can only see in future DLCs, so I'm super pumped for that. But anyways, enough rambling on. This is Snozberries, and if you liked the video, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Also, be sure to comment down below if you have any questions on the zombie storyline. I will be sure to go in as detailed as possible on the answer and make sure that you get 100% what you wanted to know. Make sure that your comment is in detail of what you exactly want to know, because that's what I'll answer. Anyways, subscribe, like, and see you in the next vid. Bye.